I was 64 years old when my own daughter-in-law told me to eat in the kitchen with the help, in front of 20 guests, while my son just sat there saying nothing. She thought I was some pathetic old woman she could humiliate. What she didn't know, I owned the mansion she was standing in. Every brick, every chandelier, every square inch of her perfect life belonged to me. And that night I decided it was time she learned the truth. Stay with me until the end of the story. Hit like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far my story travels. The invitation came on cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing. Elegant, expensive. The kind of thing Cassandra loved to send out when she wanted everyone to know she had money. Family dinner, it said. Saturday, 7 p.m., formal attire. I held it in my hands and felt something twist in my chest. Not excitement, not anticipation, something closer to dread, because I knew Cassandra. And I knew that when she invited me to anything, it was never out of love. But Ethan had called the day before, his voice soft and hopeful. "Mom, please come. It would mean a lot to both of us." Both of us, that's what he said, like Cassandra actually wanted me there. I knew better, but he was my son, my only child. And even after everything, I couldn't seem to stop hoping that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. So I went. I wore the navy dress I'd been saving for something special. Simple, but elegant. Pearl earrings my late husband Alexander had given me 30 years ago. I did my hair carefully, curled and pinned at the sides. I wanted to look dignified, presentable, like someone who belonged at her own son's table. The drive to their estate took 40 minutes. The house sat on 3 acres in Western Hills, behind wrought iron gates and a long circular driveway. 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, a pool house bigger than most people's apartments. Every time I pulled up to that property, I felt this strange mix of pride and heartbreak. Pride because Ethan had made it, or so everyone thought. Heartbreak because I knew the truth. I parked near the fountain and took a breath before getting out. The evening air was cool, carrying the scent of jasmine from the garden beds Cassandra had installed last spring. Through the tall windows, I could see people moving inside. Lots of people, more than I'd expected. My stomach tightened. When I rang the doorbell, a young woman in a catering uniform opened it. She smiled politely and gestured for me to come in. "They're all in the dining room," she said softly. I stepped inside and the sound of laughter and conversation hit me immediately. The foyer was filled with coats, purses, designer handbags draped over the console table. I counted at least 15 people through the archway, gathered around the long mahogany dining table. This wasn't a family dinner. This was a party, and nobody had told me. I stood there for a moment, feeling suddenly out of place in my simple navy dress, while everyone else glittered in cocktail attire and sharp suits. I recognized some of the faces. Cassandra's friends from the country club, a few business associates of Ethan's, distant cousins I'd only met once or twice. Then I saw Ethan. He was standing near the head of the table, laughing at something someone said, a glass of wine in his hand. He looked happy, relaxed, successful in his tailored suit. He hadn't seen me yet. I took a step forward, trying to catch his eye, but before I could, Cassandra's voice rang out across the room. "Oh, there she is." Everyone turned. Cassandra was standing near the dining table in a red dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her blonde hair was swept up in some complicated style, diamonds glinting at her throat and wrists. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Vivian," she said, her voice dripping with something that wasn't quite warmth. "We've been waiting for you." I forced a smile. "I'm sorry I'm a bit late. Traffic was—" No, it's fine." She waved a hand dismissively. Then she looked past me toward the kitchen and gestured with one perfectly manicured finger. "The maid can eat separately. There's a plate prepared for her in the back." The room went silent. I felt the words hit me before I fully understood them. The maid. She thought I was the hired help. No, worse. She wanted everyone to think I was the hired help. I looked at her, then at Ethan. He'd gone completely still, his face drained of color, but he didn't say anything. He just stood there, frozen, like a man watching a car crash. He couldn't stop. Someone coughed. A woman near the window shifted uncomfortably. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating. And then I felt it. That thing I'd been swallowing for years, that anger I'd packed down so tightly I'd almost convinced myself it wasn't there. But it was. It had always been there. I looked at Cassandra, at her smug little smile, and I felt something inside me finally snap into place. "That's perfectly fine, dear," I said softly. My voice didn't shake. I didn't let it. "But very soon you'll learn whose house you're really living in." Her smile faltered, just for a second, then she laughed, bright and dismissive, like I'd just told a joke that wasn't funny. "Excuse me?" I didn't answer. I just turned and walked toward the kitchen, my heels clicking on the marble floor. I could feel every eye in the room on my back, but I didn't care. I didn't break. I didn't cry. I just kept walking, because they didn't know. None of them knew, and that was the only card I had left. I'm so sad. The kitchen was quiet compared to the dining room. The catering staff moved around efficiently, plating food, arranging garnishes. One of them, a girl who couldn't have been older than 22, looked up at me with wide, sympathetic eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I didn't know what to say. I shook my head. "It's not your fault." She gestured to a small table in the corner near the pantry. "There's a seat here if you want. I can bring you a plate." I sat down, not because I was hungry, but because I needed a minute to think, to breathe, to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. For years, I told myself that things would get better, that Cassandra was just adjusting to the family, that Ethan would eventually stand up for me, that if I just kept being kind, kept staying quiet, kept pretending I didn't notice the little cruelties, eventually they'd stop. But they hadn't stopped. They'd gotten worse. And tonight, in front of all those people, she'd finally said out loud what she'd been implying for years, that I was beneath her, that I didn't belong, that I was nothing more than an embarrassment she had to tolerate. The girl brought me a plate, salmon, roasted vegetables, some kind of fancy potato thing. I picked at it without really tasting anything. Through the doorway, I could hear the party continuing. Laughter, the clink of glasses, Cassandra's voice rising above the rest, telling some story that had everyone chuckling. Nobody had come to check on me, not even Ethan. I set down my fork and stared at my hands. They were shaking now, just a little. The pearl ring on my right hand caught the light, another gift from Alexander, from back when we were young and building our life together. Alexander. If he was still alive, none of this would be happening. He would have shut Cassandra down the first time she tried this kind of stunt. He would have protected me, but he wasn't here. He'd been gone for 6 years now, and I'd been navigating this new world alone ever since. Only I hadn't been completely alone. I'd had something Alexander left me. Something nobody knew about except me and our attorney, Harold Chen. An empire. Alexander Sterling hadn't just been a good man, he'd been a brilliant businessman. Quiet about it, humble, never flashy. But over 40 years of marriage, he'd built a real estate portfolio that spanned 3 states. Commercial properties, residential developments, small apartment complexes, strip malls, office buildings. When he died, he left everything to me. Not to Ethan, not to some charity, to me, because he trusted me to do what was right. At first, I didn't know what to do with it all. The lawyers and accountants handled most of the day-to-day operations. I lived modestly in my small apartment downtown, drove my old sedan, wore the same clothes I'd had for years. People thought I was struggling, that Alexander had left me with just enough to get by. Even Ethan thought that. And I'd let them think it, because I didn't want to make a fuss, didn't want to seem like I was bragging, didn't want to change who I was just because I had money now. But then Ethan married Cassandra, and everything changed. The first time I met Cassandra, I wanted to like her. I really did. She was beautiful, confident, well-educated. She worked in marketing for some tech company and talked about her career with the kind of passion I admired. Ethan was clearly smitten, and I was happy he'd found someone. But there were little things, small comments, moments that made me uneasy. Like the time she asked me what I did for work, and when I said I was retired, she'd laughed and said, "Must be nice to have nothing to do all day." Or when I brought a homemade dessert to their engagement party and she'd set it aside without even tasting it, saying they'd already ordered something more elegant from a bakery. Or when I offered to help pay for part of the wedding and she'd looked at me with this pitying smile and said, "That's sweet, but we've got it covered." Like I couldn't possibly have anything valuable to contribute. Ethan had laughed it off. "She doesn't mean anything by it, Mom. She's just particular. Particular." That's what he called it. I called it cruelty dressed up as sophistication, but I stayed quiet because Ethan loved her, and I didn't want to be the kind of mother-in-law who caused problems. So when they got married in a ceremony that cost more than most people's houses, I smiled and took pictures and told everyone how happy I was. And when they started looking for a home and complained about how expensive everything was, I made a decision. I helped them, not directly, not in a way they'd know. I had Harold set up an anonymous payment system, made it look like they'd qualified for some special first-time buyer program, covered 70% of the down payment on the house in Western Hills, the mansion, their dream home. They thought they'd done it on their own. I let them believe that because I wanted Ethan to be happy. I wanted him to feel successful. I wanted him to have the life Alexander and I had built without the struggle. And for a while it worked. But Cassandra didn't get kinder. She got worse. She stopped inviting me to things. When I did visit, she'd make little comments about my clothes, my car, the way I talked. She'd introduce me to her friends as Ethan's mom, with this tone that made it clear I was an obligation, not someone she was proud to know. And Ethan just let it happen. Every time I tried to talk to him about it, he'd make excuses. "She's stressed about work." She didn't mean it that way. "You're being too sensitive, Mom. Too sensitive, like my feelings didn't matter, like I was the problem. And maybe I was. Maybe I should have spoken up sooner. Maybe I should have drawn a line the first time she disrespected me. But I didn't. Because I kept hoping that love would win, that family would matter, that eventually she'd see me as a person, not a burden." Tonight proved I'd been wrong. I don't know how long I sat in that kitchen. Long enough for the caterer to clear my plate. Long enough for the noise from the dining room to shift from dinner conversation to the clatter of dessert being served. Nobody came looking for me. Finally, I stood up, smoothed down my dress, checked my reflection in the dark window above the sink. I looked tired, older than I'd looked that morning, but I also looked determined. I thanked the catering staff and walked back toward the foyer. The party was still going strong. Through the archway, I could see Cassandra holding court at the head of the table, Ethan beside her, both of them laughing at something. They looked perfect together, the golden couple, the successful young family, built on a foundation I'd paid for. Nobody noticed when I slipped out the front door. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the house through the windshield, the warm light spilling from the windows, the manicured lawn, the fountain bubbling quietly in the driveway. It was a beautiful home, and it was mine, not theirs, mine. Alexander had taught me something important in all our years together. Power isn't about what you show people, it's about what you choose to keep hidden. And I'd been hiding long enough. I pulled out my phone and dialed Harold Chen's number. He answered on the second ring, even though it was past 9. "Vivian," he said, his voice warm. "Everything all right?" "No," I said quietly. "It's not, but it's going to be. What do you need?" I took a breath. "I need you to pull every document related to the Western Hills property, the mortgage records, the payment history, everything, and I need you to prepare transfer paperwork, putting full legal ownership exclusively in my name." There was a pause. "Are you sure?" Harold asked gently. "I'm sure. This is going to... I know what it's going to do, Harold. That's why I'm doing it." Another pause, then softer. "I'll have everything ready by Monday." "Thank you." I hung up and sat there in the dark, feeling something settle in my chest. Not peace exactly, but clarity. For years, I'd been trying to buy love with money, trying to earn respect with generosity, trying to fix broken relationships by being useful. But love doesn't work that way. Respect doesn't work that way, and I was done pretending otherwise. The next few weeks were strange. Ethan called twice, leaving voicemails that I didn't return right away. Both times, he sounded uncomfortable. "Hey, Mom, just checking in. Sorry about the dinner. Cassandra didn't mean, it was a misunderstanding. Call me back." A misunderstanding. That's what he called it. Not an apology, not accountability, just a word that let him pretend it wasn't as bad as it was. I didn't call him back for 5 days. When I finally did, I kept my voice neutral. "Hi, sweetheart." "Mom," he sounded relieved. "I've been worried. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "About the dinner, it's fine, Ethan. It's not fine. I should have said something. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to make a scene." The words landed like a slap. He didn't want to make a scene, didn't want to embarrass Cassandra, didn't want to upset the guests. But he was fine with me being humiliated. "I understand," I said quietly. "Do you want to come over this weekend? Maybe we can have dinner, just the three of us, and I'm busy this weekend." "Oh, okay, well, maybe next week." "Maybe." We talked for a few more minutes. The conversation stilted and awkward, and then I hung up. I wasn't ready to see him yet, wasn't ready to sit across from Cassandra and pretend everything was fine. Because it wasn't fine, and it was never going to be fine again. Krethig. Harold called me on a Tuesday afternoon. "Everything's ready," he said. "The ownership transfer is complete. Legally, you are now the sole owner of the property at 478 Western Hills Drive." I closed my eyes. "Thank you. Vivian," he said carefully, "once you take the next step, there's no going back. Are you absolutely certain this is what you want?" I thought about the kitchen, the way Cassandra had pointed, the way Ethan had said nothing. "I'm certain." "All right. Then I'll prepare the eviction notice. It'll give them 30 days to vacate the premises. Standard legal procedure, 30 days. 1 month for them to pack up their perfect life and leave the house they thought they owned. "Do it," I said. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the dinner in my head, kept hearing Cassandra's voice. "The maid can eat separately." Part of me felt guilty, like I was being vindictive, like I was punishing Ethan for something that wasn't entirely his fault. But another part of me, the part that had been silent for too long, knew this wasn't about punishment. It was about truth, about finally stopping the performance I'd been putting on for years, about refusing to let anyone treat me like I was worthless. Something. Cassandra planned another dinner 3 weeks later, another invitation on expensive cardstock, another family gathering. This time, when Ethan called, I could hear something different in his voice. Not warmth, not apology, obligation. "Mom, Cassandra's planning a dinner. She wants you to come. She feels bad about last time and wants to make it right." "Does she?" "Yeah, she does." I didn't believe him, but I said yes anyway, because this time I had something to bring. Saturday came. I wore the same navy dress, the same pearl earrings. I wasn't trying to impress anyone anymore. I drove to the house, that same long driveway, that same fountain, those same tall windows glowing with warm light. But this time I wasn't nervous. This time I had an envelope in my purse, and I was ready. When I walked in, the scene was almost identical to last time. Lots of guests, lots of laughter. Cassandra at the center of it all, radiant in a cream-colored dress, holding a glass of champagne. She saw me and smiled. That same smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes. "Vivian, so glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. Ethan was standing near the fireplace, talking to someone I didn't recognize. He glanced at me briefly, nodded, then looked away. Still couldn't meet my eyes. Dinner started the same way it always did. Small talk, business gossip. Cassandra showing off the new art piece she'd bought for the living room. Something abstract and expensive looking that I didn't understand. I ate quietly. Didn't draw attention to myself, just waited. And then, halfway through the main course, Cassandra stood up. She tapped her fork against her glass, and the room went quiet. "I just want to say a few words," she began, smiling around at everyone. "First, thank you all for coming. Ethan and I love having our friends and family here." Murmurs of agreement. "And second," she continued, her eyes flicking towards me briefly, "I wanted to share some exciting news. Ethan and I have been thinking about the future, about our family, about what kind of environment we want to create." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "And we've realized that this house, as much as we love it, is really meant for a younger family. So we've made a decision." She paused for effect. "We've found a wonderful senior living community just outside the city. Beautiful grounds, great amenities, and we think it would be the perfect place for Vivian to transition into this next phase of her life." The room went silent. I stared at her. She wasn't just humiliating me this time. She was kicking me out. Only she didn't realize I'd never actually lived there. She thought I was some pathetic dependent they'd been supporting, some burden they could shuffle off to a nursing home. And Ethan, I looked at him. He was staring at his plate, not looking at me, not saying anything. Again, Cassandra smiled brightly. "We've already toured the facility. It's really lovely, and we think..." "No." The word came out of my mouth before I'd even decided to say it. Cassandra blinked. "I'm sorry." I stood up slowly, reached into my purse, pulled out the envelope Harold had prepared. I said no. I walked to the head of the table where Cassandra stood frozen, her smile slipping. I placed the envelope in front of her. "What is this?" she asked. "Open it." She did. Her hand shook slightly as she pulled out the documents. I watched her eyes move across the page. Watched the exact moment the words registered. Her face went white. "That's the deed to this house," I said calmly. "In my name. And those papers behind it show every mortgage payment that's been made on this property for the last 4 years. Every single one came from my accounts." The room was dead silent now. Every eye on us. Cassandra looked up at me, her expression caught between shock and fury. "That's not possible." "It's not only possible, it's true." I pulled out another document. "Here's the bank transfer history. Here's the original purchase agreement. Here's the loan documents." I laid them out one by one, like cards in a poker game. "You want to talk about transitions, Cassandra? Let's talk about the transition you're about to make, because that last paper you're holding, that's a 30-day eviction notice. You have 1 month to get out of my house." Someone gasped. I didn't look to see who. I kept my eyes on Cassandra. She was shaking now, her face flushed. "Ethan," she said, her voice sharp, "did you know about this?" I finally looked at my son. He was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. His mouth opened, closed. No words came out. "When you told me to eat in the kitchen like hired help," I said softly, turning back to Cassandra. "Did you know you were speaking to the owner of the house? Did you know that every expensive dinner you threw, every piece of furniture you bought, every single luxury you enjoyed, I paid for it?" Tears were streaming down her face now. Not sad tears, angry ones. You've been lying to us. I've been helping you," I corrected, "and you repaid me by treating me like garbage." I looked around the room at all the shocked faces. Friends, family, strangers. "I'm done being quiet," I said. "I'm done pretending I'm less than I am so other people can feel big. And I'm done letting my own family humiliate me in my own house." I picked up my purse. "You have 30 days, I said. "Don't make me call the lawyers to enforce it." And then I walked out. This time my hands weren't shaking. This time I didn't cry. This time I held my head high and left them all sitting there in stunned silence, because I was done being the woman they could push around. I was Vivian Sterling, and I'd just taken my life back. I made it to my car before my legs started shaking, not from fear, not from regret, from adrenaline, from the sheer force of finally saying out loud what I'd been holding in for years. I sat behind the wheel, gripping it tight, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Through the windows of the house I could see shapes moving. People standing up, voices rising. I couldn't hear the words, but I could imagine them. The shock, the gossip, the scramble to understand what had just happened. Good. Let them talk. Let them all know the truth. I started the engine and pulled out of the driveway for what I thought might be the last time. The fountain disappeared in my rear view mirror, and with it, the version of myself who'd been willing to accept crumbs from my own son's table. That woman was gone, and I wasn't sure yet who I was becoming, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. My phone started ringing before I even made it to the main road. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring. Then it rang again and again. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex 20 minutes later, I had 11 missed calls and a string of text messages that I didn't have the stomach to read yet. I turned off my phone and went inside. My apartment was small. 1 bedroom, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. Furniture I'd had for decades. Nothing matched. Nothing was expensive or impressive, but it was mine, and tonight that felt like enough. I made tea I didn't drink and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the documents I'd brought back with me. Copies of everything I'd laid out at dinner. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't lying, that every word I'd said was true. Part of me still couldn't believe I'd done it. Part of me wanted to call Harold and take it all back, apologize, smooth things over, go back to being quiet, manageable Vivian who never caused problems. But I didn't. Because the bigger part of me, the part that had been suffocating for years, felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. I slept better that night than I had in months. The next morning my phone was still off. I made coffee, sat by the window, and watched the city wake up. Watched people walking dogs, carrying groceries, living their normal Sunday lives. I wondered if anyone at that dinner table had slept at all. Finally, around 10, I turned my phone back on. 37 missed calls, 23 text messages, 4 voicemails. Most of them were from Ethan, a few from numbers I didn't recognize. One from Cassandra's mother, Patricia, who I'd met exactly twice and who had never once called me before. I started with the voicemails. The first was Ethan, his voice tight and angry. "Mom, what the hell was that? You can't just call me back now." The second was Ethan again, quieter this time. "Mom, please, we need to talk. This is insane. Just call me." The third was from a number I didn't know. A woman's voice, cold and clipped. "Mrs. Sterling, this is Amanda Voss from Hightower Legal Group. I'm calling on behalf of Cassandra Hale. We need to discuss the document you presented last night. Please return this call at your earliest convenience." They'd already hired a lawyer, less than 12 hours, and they were lawyering up. I almost laughed. The fourth voicemail was Patricia. "Vivian dear, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Cassandra is very upset, and I'm sure if we all just sit down and talk like adults, we can sort this out. Please call me." A misunderstanding. That word again. Like I'd accidentally shown everyone proof of my ownership, like I'd tripped and fallen, and 30 pages of legal documents had just spilled out of my purse. I deleted all 4 voicemails without responding. Then I scrolled through the texts. Most were variations of the same thing. "Call me. We need to talk. This isn't fair. You're overreacting." But one stood out. It was from Ethan, sent at 2 in the morning. "Mom, I don't understand why you did this. I thought we were family." I stared at that message for a long time. I thought we were family. Like family meant letting people treat you like dirt. Like family meant financing someone's entire life while they pretended you didn't exist. Like family meant swallowing every insult, every humiliation, every wound, and still showing up with a smile. That wasn't family. That was servitude. I put the phone down and didn't pick it up again for the rest of the day. Monday morning, Harold called. "I heard from Hightower Legal," he said. His voice was calm, steady. Harold had been Alexander's attorney for 30 years and mine for the 6 since. He'd seen me through the worst grief of my life. This was nothing compared to that. What did they say? They're claiming undue influence, saying you manipulated the situation to trick Ethan and Cassandra into accepting financial help under false pretenses, and that the property should rightfully transfer to them based on some kind of implied agreement. I closed my eyes. That's ridiculous. It is, and it won't hold up. You have every document showing clear ownership, every payment record, every transfer. There was no implied agreement, no contract. You made gifts. That's not illegal, and it certainly doesn't transfer ownership. So they can't fight this. They can try, but they'll lose. The law is very clear. The question is whether you want to go through a prolonged legal battle or whether you want to settle. Settle? They might offer to buy the property from you or negotiate some kind of payment plan. It would avoid court, avoid publicity. No. Harold paused. Vivian, no settlements, no negotiations. I want them out in 30 days, just like the notice says. Are you sure this is going to get ugly? It's already ugly, Harold. It's been ugly for years. I'm just finally admitting it. He was quiet for a moment. Then, all right, I'll inform their counsel that we're not interested in settlement discussions. The eviction stands. Thank you. After I hung up, I sat there feeling the weight of what I'd just committed to. A legal fight, public exposure, the complete destruction of whatever relationship I had left with my son. But the alternative, backing down, apologizing, pretending none of this had happened, felt like dying. And I wasn't ready to die yet. That afternoon, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Ethan standing there, hands shoved in his pockets, looking exhausted. For a moment, I considered not answering, just staying quiet until he left. But he was still my son. I opened the door. Hi, Mom. Ethan. We stood there awkwardly. He looked like he hadn't slept. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled. I'd never seen him look so undone. Can I come in? I stepped aside. He walked past me into the small living room, looking around like he was seeing it for the first time. Maybe he was. He hadn't visited in over a year. You want coffee? I asked. No, I need to understand what's happening. I sat down in the armchair by the window. He stayed standing, pacing slightly. What do you want to know? Everything. He ran a hand through his hair. How long have you owned the house? Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let us think that you'd done it on your own? He stopped pacing. Yeah. Because you were proud, I said quietly. You were so proud when you got approved for that mortgage. You kept talking about how you'd finally made it, how you were building something real, and I didn't want to take that away from you. So you just paid for it without telling me? I helped. I didn't pay for all of it, but yes, I covered most of the down payment. And when you started struggling with the monthly payments last year, I covered those too. His face went pale. We weren't struggling. Ethan, I saw the bank statements. You were 3 months behind. You were about to lose the house. How did you... He stopped, closed his eyes. You've been watching our accounts? Harold monitors them as part of the estate management. When he saw you were in trouble, he told me, and I fixed it. Without asking. Would you have let me help if I'd asked? He didn't answer. We both knew he wouldn't have. His pride wouldn't have allowed it. So you've just been, what, playing some kind of secret benefactor while letting us think we were doing fine? I was trying to help my son by lying to me. The word hit hard. I didn't lie. I just didn't advertise the truth. That's the same thing, Mom. Is it? I leaned forward. Was I lying when I paid for your college without telling you your father's life insurance covered it? Was I lying when I bought you that car for graduation and said it was from both of us, even though Dad had been dead for 3 months? Was I lying every time I made your life easier without needing credit for it? He looked away. I've been protecting you your whole life, Ethan, quietly, without asking for anything in return. And the one time I stop being quiet, the one time I stand up for myself, you call it lying. That's not fair. What's not fair is being humiliated in front of 20 people while my son stands there and says nothing. What's not fair is being told I need to move into a nursing home like I'm some burden you need to get rid of. What's not fair is spending years being treated like I'm worthless by a woman who wouldn't have anything without my money. My voice had risen. I took a breath, forced myself to calm down. Ethan was staring at me with something that looked like shock. I didn't know she was going to do that, he said quietly. The nursing home thing, she didn't tell me. But you knew about the first dinner. When she called me the maid, you were standing right there. I know. And I should have said something. I should have defended you. He sat down heavily on the couch. I didn't know how. She gets like that sometimes. And if I call her out, she just gets worse. And then we fight for days. So you threw me under the bus to keep your wife happy. I didn't throw you. He stopped, looked at his hands. Yeah, I guess I did. The admission hung in the air between us. I'm sorry, he said finally. I'm really sorry, Mom. You deserved better than that. I wanted to forgive him, wanted to tell him it was okay, that we could move past it, that everything would be fine. But I couldn't, not yet. You're sorry now because you found out I own the house, I said. Would you be sorry if I was actually just some broke old woman with no power? He looked up at me, hurt. That's not, isn't it? Be honest with yourself, Ethan. If I hadn't dropped those papers on the table, if I'd just gone home and cried like everyone expected, would you be here right now apologizing? He opened his mouth, closed it. The answer was written all over his face. I thought so, I said. We sat in silence for a long time. So what happens now? He asked finally. You really going to kick us out? Yes. Mom, you have 30 days. That's more than fair. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem, Ethan. You're a grown man. You have a job. Figure it out. Cassandra's talking about suing you. Let her try. Harold says she doesn't have a case. She's furious. She's telling everyone you're senile, that you're making up stories, that we need to get you evaluated. Of course she is. I wasn't surprised. Cassandra's first instinct was always to attack. Let her say whatever she wants. The documents speak for themselves. Ethan looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. When did you get so hard? The question stung more than I expected. I'm not hard, I said quietly. I'm just done being soft in places where it only gets me hurt. He didn't have an answer for that. He stood up slowly. I should go. Yeah. He walked to the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I know you probably don't believe me, but I am. I believe you're sorry things turned out this way, I said. I'm just not sure you're sorry about what you did. He flinched, then he left. I sat there alone in my apartment, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway, and wondered if I'd just lost my son forever. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I just felt tired. Over the next week, things got worse. Cassandra's lawyer sent 3 letters, each more threatening than the last. They claimed I was mentally unfit, that I'd forged documents, that I was attempting to financially abuse my own son. Harold responded to each one with cold, legal precision, attaching more documentation, more proof, more evidence that every word I'd said was true. On Wednesday, someone from Cassandra's country club called my cell phone. I don't know how she got the number. She introduced herself as Regina something or other and asked if I'd be willing to have a conversation about this unfortunate situation. I hung up without answering. On Friday, Ethan called again. This time, he didn't ask to see me. He just asked for more time. We can't find a place in 30 days, he said. His voice was flat, defeated. Everything in our price range is taken. We need at least 60. The notice says 30. Mom, please. You had plenty of time to plan before you decided to announce I was moving into a nursing home. You should have thought about where you'd live if I said no. We didn't think you'd... He stopped. We didn't think you could. I know, that was the problem. He didn't call back. On Saturday, I went to the grocery store. I was standing in the produce section trying to decide between 2 types of apples when I heard a voice behind me. Well, if it isn't Vivian Sterling. I turned. Patricia Hale, Cassandra's mother. Designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, a Chanel bag on her arm, looking at me like I was something she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. Patricia. I've been wanting to talk to you, she said. Her voice was bright, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. About this whole mess with Cassandra. There's nothing to talk about. Oh, I think there is. She moved closer, lowering her voice like we were friends sharing secrets. Look, I know my daughter can be difficult sometimes. She has high standards, but what you did at that dinner was cruel, Vivian. Publicly humiliating her like that, making her look like some kind of gold digger in front of all her friends. I stared at her. She called me the maid. She made a mistake. People make mistakes. She tried to put me in a nursing home. Patricia waved a hand dismissively. She was trying to help. She thought you'd be happier somewhere with people your own age. I'm 64, not 90, and I don't need her help. Clearly. Patricia's smile hardened. You know, when Cassandra married Ethan, I warned her. I said, watch out for the mother-in-law. They always cause problems. But she insisted you were harmless. Sweet old Vivian, living in her little apartment, so grateful to be included in their lives. The contempt in her voice was breathtaking. Turns out I was right, Patricia continued. You are a problem, and now you're trying to ruin my daughter's marriage. Because what? Because your feelings got hurt? I'm protecting what's mine. That house is not yours, not really. You gave it to them. You can't just take it back because you're having some kind of crisis. I didn't give them anything. I helped them. There's a difference. Not legally, there isn't. And when this goes to court, it won't go to court, I said calmly, because your daughter doesn't have a case. She has 30 days to leave. That's it. Patricia stepped even closer. Close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. You really want to do this? You want to destroy your relationship with your son over a house, over money? This isn't about money. Then what is it about? Respect, I said. Something your daughter knows nothing about. Patricia's face flushed. You bitter old... Careful, I said quietly. We're in public. Wouldn't want anyone to think you're anything less than gracious. For a second, I thought she might actually hit me. Her hand twitched, her jaw clenched, but then she seemed to remember where we were. She stepped back, smoothing down her jacket. You're going to regret this, she said. Cassandra has friends, powerful friends, people who can make your life very difficult. Let them try. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. I stood there shaking, my heart pounding, and realized I'd just made another enemy. But I also realized I didn't care. That night, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line. Just a message. You're a vindictive old woman who's jealous of your son's success. Everyone knows it. You should be ashamed. I deleted it. 10 minutes later, another one came. Different address, same message. Then another, and another. By midnight, I'd received 47 emails, all variations on the same theme. Calling me cruel, selfish, bitter, a bad mother, a liar, a manipulator. Someone had organized this, sent out my email address to Cassandra's friends, and told them to attack. I reported the emails as spam and turned off my computer. But I couldn't turn off the feeling that I was under siege. Sunday morning, I found a note taped to my apartment door. Home wrecker, you should be ashamed. No signature, just those words, written in angry red marker. I took it down and threw it away, but my hands were shaking. That afternoon, Harold called. We have a problem. What now? Cassandra gave an interview to one of those online lifestyle magazines. She's telling her side of the story. My stomach dropped. What did she say? That you're a disturbed elderly woman who became obsessed with controlling her son's life, that you secretly bought his house without his knowledge or consent as a way to manipulate him, that when he tried to set healthy boundaries, you retaliated by trying to make him homeless. I felt sick. I know it's not true, but it's out there now, published, with her name and face attached. She's playing the victim, and people are believing her. Can we sue? For defamation? Maybe, but it would be expensive, time-consuming, and it would just give her more attention. Sometimes the best response is no response. So we just let her lie. We stick to the facts, the legal case, the documents. Truth has a way of coming out, Vivian. It just takes time. Time. I didn't know if I had enough time. Didn't know if I could survive this kind of assault on my character, my reputation, my truth. Harold, I said quietly, am I doing the right thing? He was silent for a moment. Do you think you're doing the right thing? I don't know anymore. Maybe I should have just walked away, moved, started over somewhere else. You could have, but would you have been happy? I don't know if I can be happy anymore. Vivian, his voice was gentle. Alexander left you that property for a reason. He trusted you to know what to do with it. He trusted you to stand up for yourself. Do you trust yourself? I closed my eyes, thought about Alexander, about the man who'd loved me for 40 years, who'd built an empire while wearing the same 3 shirts and driving a truck until the wheels fell off. He would have stood up. He would have fought. Yeah, I said, I trust myself. Then keep going. I hung up and sat there for a long time thinking about trust, about strength, about the difference between being kind and being weak. And I realized something. I'd spent my whole life trying to be loved. Maybe it was time to just try being respected, even if that meant standing alone. Monday marked day 14, 16 days left until the eviction took effect, and the war had only just begun. The article went viral on Tuesday. I didn't see it at first. I'd stopped checking social media, stopped reading comments, stopped torturing myself with other people's opinions. But my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, knocked on my door that morning with her phone in her hand and worry all over her face. Vivian, honey, I don't know if you've seen this, but I looked at the screen. There was Cassandra, professionally photographed, looking devastated and beautiful in a cream sweater. The headline read, "Daughter-in-law speaks out when family love becomes financial abuse." I don't want to read it, I said. You should, Mrs. Chen said gently. They're saying things. I took the phone. The article was worse than I'd imagined. Cassandra painted herself as a caring daughter-in-law who tried everything to help her husband's increasingly unstable mother. She talked about how I'd refused to accept help, how I'd become obsessed with maintaining control, how she and Ethan had gently suggested a senior community for my own safety. She made it sound like an intervention, like she was trying to save me. And then came the part that made my blood run cold. I think she's always resented me, Cassandra said in the interview. From the moment Ethan and I got engaged, she made it clear I wasn't good enough. She'd make these little comments about my background, my career, my family. And when we succeeded, despite her disapproval, when we built this beautiful life together, I think it just ate away at her. So she found a way to take it all back. I handed the phone to Mrs. Chen. My hands were shaking too hard to hold it. That's not true, I said. None of that is true. I know, honey. Anyone who knows you knows that. But how many people actually knew me? How many people would see this article, see Cassandra's pretty face and convincing tears, and believe her version of events? Mrs. Chen squeezed my arm. You want me to stay? Make some tea? No, thank you, but no, I need to think. She left reluctantly, and I sat there staring at the wall, feeling the world shift under my feet. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about my reputation, my character, my truth. And Cassandra was winning. By that afternoon, the article had been shared 12,000 times. I know because Harold called to tell me. Local news picked it up, he said. They want to do a story. They've requested an interview with you. Absolutely not. Vivian, this might be your chance to tell your side. I'm not turning this into a media circus. That's what she wants. She wants me to look defensive, to look like the crazy old woman she's claiming I am. Then what do you want to do? I didn't have an answer. I felt trapped. If I stayed silent, Cassandra's lies would become the accepted truth. But if I spoke up, I'd be playing her game, fighting on her terms. I need to talk to Ethan, I said finally. Do you think that's wise? I don't know, but he's still my son. And if there's any part of him that knows the truth, any part that remembers who I actually am, then maybe. I didn't finish the sentence. Didn't know how to. Harold was quiet for a moment. Be careful, he said. People in desperate situations do desperate things. After we hung up, I sat with that warning, turned it over in my mind, wondered what desperate looked like for Ethan right now. I called him that evening. He answered on the 5th ring. Mom. His voice was cold, guarded. I read the article, I said. Yeah, so did everyone else, apparently. It's not true, Ethan. You know it's not true. Silence. Ethan, I don't know what I know anymore, Mom. I thought I knew you, thought I understood our family. Turns out I didn't know anything. That's not fair. I never lied to you about who I was. You just lied about everything else. The bitterness in his voice cut deep. I was trying to help you, I said. That's all I've ever tried to do. Help me. You're trying to make me homeless. How is that helping? You're not homeless. You have options. You have a job, savings. We've been looking for 3 weeks. Do you know how expensive everything is? Do you know what it's like to go from a 6-bedroom house to nothing? I lived in nothing for 40 years while your father and I built something real. We didn't start with a mansion, Ethan. We started with a 1-bedroom apartment and cockroaches in the kitchen. You can do the same. I shouldn't have to. And there it was, the entitlement, the belief that he deserved luxury without sacrifice, success without struggle. Why not? I asked. Why shouldn't you have to work for what you want like everyone else? Because you already did the work. You have the money, the properties, all of it. And instead of helping your own son, you're punishing him for marrying someone you don't like. This has nothing to do with liking Cassandra. Bullshit. This has everything to do with her. You've hated her from day one. I never hated her. I just saw who she was and I was right. She's my wife, Mom, the woman I chose, and you can't accept that. I could accept it if she treated me like a human being, but she doesn't, and you let her. The silence that followed was different, heavier. I know, he said finally. His voice cracked. I know I should have said something at that dinner. I know I should have defended you, but I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to stand up to her without everything falling apart. So you let me fall apart instead. I didn't think... He started again. I didn't think it would get this bad. I thought you'd just, I don't know, let it go, move on, like you always do, like I always do. That phrase hung between us like a confession, because he was right. I had always let things go, always moved on, always swallowed the hurt and kept smiling, because that's what good mothers did. That's what good people did. And my son had learned that he could keep hurting me without consequences. I'm not letting this go, I said quietly, not this time. Even if it means losing me, the question hit like a fist to the chest. Is that what this is? I asked. You're saying if I don't back down, I lose my son. I'm saying there are consequences, Mom, for both of us. You want to play hardball? Fine, but don't expect me to just forgive this, to pretend everything's okay. I don't expect that. I don't expect anything from you anymore, Ethan. That's the problem. I spent so many years expecting you to choose me, to defend me, to see me, and you never did. So now I'm choosing myself. He didn't respond. The eviction stands, I said. You have 16 days. I suggest you spend them looking for a place to live instead of doing interviews about how terrible I am. That interview was Cassandra's idea, but you didn't stop her. Just like you didn't stop her at the dinner, just like you've never stopped her from treating me like trash. So don't pretend you're innocent in this, Ethan. You made your choice a long time ago. I hung up before he could respond, and then I cried. Not because I regretted what I'd said, but because saying it out loud made it real. My son had chosen his wife over his mother, had chosen comfort over courage, had chosen to protect himself instead of protecting me. And I had to accept that maybe he'd never been the man I thought he was. The next morning I woke up to find my car keyed. Long, jagged scratches down both sides, deep enough to cut through the paint to the metal underneath. Someone had also slashed 2 tires and broken the passenger side mirror. I stood in the parking lot staring at the damage, feeling something inside me go numb. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't random. Someone had done this on purpose. Someone angry enough, hateful enough to destroy my property as revenge for destroying theirs. I called the police. They came, took a report, asked if I had any enemies. My daughter-in-law, I said, and apparently everyone who read that article about me. The officer, a young woman with kind eyes, looked at me sympathetically. We'll check security footage if your building has any. But I have to be honest, Mrs. Sterling. Property damage cases like this rarely lead to arrests unless we have clear evidence. So whoever did this just gets away with it. Unfortunately, that's often how it works. She gave me a case number and left. I called Harold. He sent someone to tow the car to a repair shop and arranged for a rental. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. I think you should consider staying somewhere else for a few days, just until things calm down. I'm not leaving my home because someone keyed my car. Vivian, this is escalating. First the emails, then the note, now this. Whoever's doing this is getting bolder. I'm worried about your safety. You think Cassandra would actually hurt me? I think Cassandra has a lot of angry friends with nothing to lose, and I think you should take precautions. I wanted to argue, wanted to insist I wasn't scared, wasn't going to be intimidated. But the truth was I was scared, not just of the car or the emails or the notes, but of what came next, of how far people were willing to go when they felt justified in their anger. I'll think about it, I said. I didn't leave, but I did start locking my door with a deadbolt. Started checking the peephole before opening. Started feeling like a prisoner in my own apartment. On Thursday, someone left a bag of garbage outside my door. Old food, dirty diapers, things that smelled so bad I gagged when I opened the door to leave for the grocery store. I cleaned it up without calling anyone. Didn't want to seem weak. Didn't want to give them the satisfaction. On Friday, I got a call from the building manager. Someone had filed a noise complaint about me, said I was playing loud music at 3 a.m, disturbing other residents. I don't even own a stereo, I told him. I know, Vivian. I've lived here 15 years. I know you're not the problem, but I have to follow up on complaints. Just be aware someone's trying to make trouble for you. On Saturday, I found out my bank account had been frozen. I discovered it when my debit card got declined at the pharmacy. The pharmacist ran it 3 times, then suggested I call my bank. I called from the parking lot. Mrs. Sterling, yes, there's a hold on your account pending an investigation. Investigation? What investigation? We received a report of suspected elder financial abuse. The account has been temporarily frozen while we verify the legitimacy of recent transactions. My hands went cold. Who reported this? I'm not at liberty to say, but the hold should be lifted within 5 to 7 business days once we complete our review. I need access to my money. I have bills. I understand, Mom. Unfortunately, these holds are required by federal law when abuse is suspected. For your protection. For my protection. Someone had weaponized the system against me, had called the bank and reported me as a victim of my own financial decisions, and I knew exactly who. I called Harold. He was already on it, had already been contacted by the bank's legal department. This is Cassandra, I said. She's trying to make me look incompetent, trying to prove I'm not fit to manage my own affairs. I know, and I'm handling it. I've sent them documentation proving your mental competency, your legal right to manage the estate, everything they need to lift the hold. But Vivian, this is serious. She's going after your financial access. If she can get a judge to appoint a conservator, she can take everything. Yes. I sat in my car, watching people walk in and out of the pharmacy, living their normal lives, and felt the walls closing in. Cassandra wasn't just fighting me for the house anymore. She was fighting to take away my autonomy, my independence, my right to make my own decisions. And she was using the very systems meant to protect vulnerable people to do it. What do? I asked. We fight back, harder. I'm going to file a restraining order against her for harassment, and I'm going to request an emergency hearing to resolve the eviction before she can do any more damage. Will it work? It has to. But his voice didn't sound confident. It sounded worried, and that scared me more than anything else. That night, someone threw a brick through my living room window. It happened just after 10. I was getting ready for bed when I heard the crash. Glass exploded inward, covering my couch, my coffee table, everything. The brick landed in the middle of the floor. Wrapped around it was a piece of paper. I picked it up with shaking hands. You took her home. Now we're taking your piece. Back off or it gets worse. I called the police again. Same officer as before. She looked at the brick, the note, the shattered window, and her expression darkened. This is a direct threat, Mrs. Sterling. I'm going to file this as criminal intimidation, and I'm going to recommend you get a protective order. Against who? I don't have proof who did this. Against anyone you suspect might be involved. Your daughter-in-law, her friends, anyone who might escalate further. Will it stop them? She looked at me with tired eyes. Honestly, sometimes. Sometimes not, but it's a legal record, and if anything else happens, it strengthens your case. After she left, I sat in my apartment surrounded by broken glass and tried to remember why I thought this was worth it. Tried to remember what I was even fighting for anymore. Mrs. Chen came over when she heard the commotion. She helped me clean up, helped me tape cardboard over the broken window until the landlord could fix it. You should come stay with me, she said, just for a few days until this calms down. I can't. If I leave, they win. Vivian, honey, there's no winning here. There's just survival. And right now, you need to survive. But I couldn't leave, couldn't let them drive me out of my own home. Because if I ran now, what was next? Would I run from the house when I finally got possession of it? Would I run from every battle, every fight, every moment someone made me uncomfortable? No. I'd spent my whole life running. From conflict, from confrontation, from standing up for myself. I was done running, even if it killed me. Sunday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls, all from Ethan. I called him back, my heart pounding. Mom, thank God, are you okay? I'm fine, what's wrong? What's wrong? Someone threw a brick through your window. The building manager called me because I'm your emergency contact. Why didn't you call me? Why would I? The question seemed to stun him into silence. Because I'm your son, he said finally. Because someone's threatening you. Someone you're married to. Mom, that wasn't... Cassandra didn't do that. She wouldn't... How do you know? Because I know her. Do you? Do you really? Because the woman I've gotten to know over the past 4 years seems perfectly capable of throwing a brick through someone's window if she thought it would get her what she wanted. That's not fair. Stop telling me what's fair, Ethan. Nothing about this is fair. Nothing about what's been done to me is fair. But I'm still standing and I'm not backing down. You're going to get hurt. I'm already hurt. I've been hurt for years. The difference is now everyone can see it. He was quiet for a long time. I don't want you to get hurt worse. Then tell your wife to stop. Tell her friends to stop. Tell whoever's doing this that I'm not going anywhere. She won't listen to me. Then I guess we're both dealing with partners who don't respect us. The words came out harsher than I meant them, but they were true. I'm coming over, Ethan said. I'm coming to check on you. Don't. Mom, I don't want you here, Ethan. I don't want your concern now after everything. I don't want you playing the good son while your wife destroys my life. Either you stand with me or you stand with her, but you don't get to stand in the middle anymore. That's not fair. Life's not fair. You taught me that when you stood there and watched her call me a maid. I hung up. And this time, when the tears came, they weren't sad tears. They were angry ones, frustrated ones, the tears of someone who'd finally hit the limit of what she could take. Monday marked day 22, 8 days until the eviction. Harold called with news. The judge granted the emergency hearing. Wednesday at 2, both parties have to appear. So this is it. This is it. We present our case, they present theirs, and the judge decides whether the eviction stands. What if we lose? We won't lose. We have the documentation, the legal ownership, everything we need. But Vivian, you need to be prepared for this to get ugly. They're going to paint you as vindictive, mentally unstable, financially abusive. They're going to say terrible things about you in front of a judge. Let them. I know who I am. But did I? After weeks of being told I was crazy, manipulative, cruel, I was starting to wonder if maybe they were right. Maybe I was the villain in this story. Maybe I'd gone too far. No. I pushed the thought away. That's what they wanted. That's what Cassandra wanted, to make me doubt myself so much that I'd give up. But I wasn't giving up, not when I was this close. Tuesday night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the hearing, about what I'd say, about facing Cassandra and Ethan in a courtroom and having to defend my right to my own property. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're going to lose tomorrow, and when you do, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what a pathetic, bitter old woman you are. I'm going to ruin you the way you tried to ruin me. See you in court. It had to be Cassandra. Had to be. I didn't respond. Just lay there in the dark, feeling the weight of tomorrow pressing down on me, and wondering if I had enough strength left to survive what was coming. I wore the same navy dress to court that I'd worn to both dinners, not because I thought it was lucky, but because I wanted Cassandra to remember. Wanted her to see the woman she'd sent to eat in the kitchen standing across from her in a courtroom, fighting for what was rightfully mine. Harold met me outside the courthouse at 1:30. He was carrying 2 briefcases, both stuffed with documents. You ready? He asked. No, but let's do it anyway. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, rows of benches that reminded me of church pews. A few people were scattered in the gallery, probably there for other cases. And then I saw them. Cassandra sat at the defendant's table with her attorney, a sharp-looking woman in a black suit. Cassandra herself wore white, actual white, like she was the innocent victim in all this. Her hair was pulled back, minimal makeup, designed to look vulnerable and sympathetic. Ethan sat beside her. He didn't look at me when I walked in. That hurt more than I expected. Harold guided me to our table. I sat down, my hands folded in my lap, trying to look calm, even though my heart was hammering. All rise. The judge entered, an older black woman with silver hair and reading glasses on a chain. She looked tired, like she'd been hearing cases all day, and ours was just one more problem to solve. Please be seated. She glanced at the papers in front of her. Case number 2847, Sterling versus Hale. This is an emergency hearing regarding an eviction notice. Miss Chen, you're representing the plaintiff? Harold stood. Yes, Your Honor. Harold Chen, representing Vivian Sterling. And for the defendants? Cassandra's lawyer stood. Amanda Voss, Your Honor, representing Cassandra and Ethan Hale. All right. Mr. Chen, this is your motion. Let's hear it. Harold opened his briefcase and began laying out documents. He spoke clearly, methodically, building the case piece by piece. He showed the deed with my name, showed the mortgage payments from my accounts, showed the purchase agreement, the transfer records, everything proving I owned the property. Your Honor, this is straightforward. Mrs. Sterling is the legal owner of the property at 4782 Western Hills Drive. She provided financial assistance to her son and daughter-in-law, but that assistance does not constitute a transfer of ownership. She has the right to evict them with proper notice, which she has provided. The defendants have been given 30 days. We're asking the court to uphold that eviction. The judge looked at the documents, flipped through pages, then she looked at Amanda Voss. Ms. Voss, I'm looking at a pretty clear ownership record here. What's your defense? Amanda stood, and I could see the strategy immediately. She didn't go after the documents, she went after me. Your Honor, this case is about more than ownership. It's about elder abuse, financial manipulation, a disturbed woman using her wealth to control and punish her family. Harold stood up. Objection. That's not what this hearing is about. Your Honor, Amanda continued, my clients believed they owned this home. They made mortgage payments, maintained the property, invested in improvements. Mrs. Sterling allowed them to believe this for years. Then suddenly, after a family disagreement, she revealed that she'd been secretly controlling everything. This is emotional abuse disguised as property law. That's not true, I whispered. Harold put a hand on my arm. Stay calm. The judge looked at me, then at Cassandra. Ms. Voss, do you have any evidence that your clients had legal ownership or a reasonable expectation of ownership? We have evidence that Mrs. Sterling has a history of unstable behavior. We'd like to present testimony from my client about Mrs. Sterling's declining mental state and her pattern of manipulation. Objection, Harold said firmly. The plaintiff's mental state is not relevant to the ownership question. This is a property dispute, not a competency hearing. The judge looked annoyed. Ms. Voss, Mr. Chen is right. Unless you can show me a contract, a deed, something that gives your clients legal claim to the property, Mrs. Sterling's personality is irrelevant. Your Honor, we're asking the court to consider the broader context. Mrs. Sterling made promises. Verbal promises don't supersede legal ownership. Do you have anything in writing? Amanda hesitated. No, Your Honor, but then we're done here. The eviction stands. I felt something release in my chest. We'd won. It was over. But then Amanda played her last card. Your Honor, we're also filing a motion for conservatorship. We believe Mrs. Sterling is not competent to manage her financial affairs and that she poses a danger to herself and others through her erratic decision-making. The courtroom went silent. I stared at Amanda, then at Cassandra, feeling the floor drop out from under me. They were trying to take everything, not just the house, my freedom, my autonomy, my right to make my own decisions. Harold was on his feet immediately. Your Honor, that is outrageous. Mrs. Sterling is a fully competent adult who has successfully managed a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio for 6 years. This is a transparent attempt to punish her for exercising her legal rights. We have evidence, Amanda said. She pulled out a folder. We have statements from witnesses who've observed Miss Sterling's declining mental state, her paranoia, her inability to maintain relationships, her increasingly erratic behavior. What witnesses? Harold demanded. Amanda smiled. Mrs. Sterling's own son, for one. I looked at Ethan. He was staring at the table, his face pale. Ethan? I said. My voice came out broken. He didn't look up. Your Honor, Amanda continued, Ethan Hale is prepared to testify that his mother has shown signs of dementia, paranoia, and financial irresponsibility, that she's made decisions that put her own well-being at risk, that she needs professional care and oversight. The judge looked at Ethan. Mr. Hale, is this true? You're seeking conservatorship over your own mother? Ethan finally looked up. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His voice cracked. I don't know what else to do. She's not herself. She's making these decisions that don't make sense. I'm worried about her. Worried about me? I couldn't help it. The words burst out. You're worried about me? After everything your wife has done? After the emails and the threats and the brick through my window? The judge held up a hand. Mrs. Sterling, please. No. I stood up. Harold tried to pull me back down, but I shook him off. I'm not sitting here quietly while my own son tries to take away my rights. You want to talk about mental competence? I've managed a real estate empire for 6 years. I've made every payment on time, maintained every property, increased the value of every asset. I'm not the one who's incompetent. I'm the one who finally stopped letting people walk all over me. Mrs. Sterling, the judge started. She called me a maid in front of 20 people. She tried to put me in a nursing home. And when I stood up for myself, when I finally said enough, They all decided I must be crazy, because what kind of woman stands up for herself, right? What kind of mother doesn't just take the abuse and smile? Your Honor, Amanda said, this outburst is exactly what we're talking about. Mrs. Sterling is clearly emotionally unstable. I'm not unstable. I'm angry. There's a difference. The judge looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked at Harold. Mr. Chen, I'm going to need to see documentation of your client's mental competency, medical records, psychological evaluations, anything that contradicts the conservatorship claim. We can provide all of that, Your Honor, but this is clearly a retaliatory filing. Maybe it is, but I can't ignore it. If there's any question about Mrs. Sterling's ability to manage her affairs, I need to see proof she's competent before I finalize any property decisions. My legs went weak. I sat down hard. So what happens now? Harold asked. I'm ordering a temporary hold on the eviction pending a full competency evaluation. Mrs. Sterling will need to undergo a psychiatric assessment within the next 14 days. Once I have that report, we'll reconvene and I'll make a final ruling. Your Honor, that's my decision, Mr. Chen. Court adjourned. The gavel came down, and just like that, everything I'd fought for was suspended, put on hold, contingent on proving to strangers that I wasn't crazy. I sat there numb while people filed out of the courtroom. Harold was talking, saying something about filing objections, about rushing the evaluation, but I couldn't hear him. All I could hear was Ethan's voice, saying he thought I needed professional care. My own son, trying to have me declared incompetent. When I finally stood up, my legs were shaking. Harold steadied me. We're going to fight this, he said. We're going to get you evaluated, prove you're competent, and finish this. But Vivian, you need to hold it together. No more outbursts, no more confrontations. You need to show them you're calm, rational, in control. I am in control. I know. But they're going to use every emotion, every tear, every moment of anger against you. So from now on, you're stone. You don't react, you don't engage, you just exist. Can you do that? I looked across the courtroom. Cassandra was hugging her lawyer, smiling. Victorious. She'd found the perfect weapon, my own son's testimony, and she'd used it to nearly destroy me. Ethan stood off to the side, not celebrating, not smiling, just standing there looking miserable. Our eyes met, and I saw something I didn't expect. Shame. He looked away quickly, but I'd seen it, that flash of guilt, of knowing he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Yeah, I said to Harold, I can do that. But I didn't know if I was telling him the truth or lying to myself. The ride back to my apartment was silent. Harold offered to come up, to stay with me for a while, but I told him I needed to be alone. That was a mistake. The second I walked into my apartment and closed the door, everything I'd been holding in came crashing down. I made it to the couch before I started sobbing. Not quiet tears, ugly gasping sobs that hurt my chest and made my throat raw. My son had just tried to have me declared mentally incompetent in front of a judge. My son had chosen his wife over me so completely that he was willing to take away my freedom. My son had looked at me and decided I was the problem. I don't know how long I cried, long enough that my head started pounding, long enough that I ran out of tears and just sat there, empty and hollow. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming, a car alarm going off somewhere outside, the people upstairs walking around, normal sounds, normal life continuing while mine fell apart. My phone rang. I didn't answer it. It rang again and again. Finally, I looked at the screen. Mrs. Chen, I answered. Vivian, honey, I heard about the hearing. Are you okay? I'm fine. You don't sound fine. I will be. There was a pause. I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm already at your door. I opened it. Mrs. Chen stood there with a container of soup and a bottle of wine. I don't know which one you need more, she said, so I brought both. I started crying again. She set everything down and hugged me. just stood there in my doorway, hugging me while I fell apart on her shoulder. "I can't do this," I whispered. "I can't keep fighting." "Yes, you can, because you're Vivian Sterling, and Vivian Sterling doesn't quit." "But what if they're right? What if I'm losing my mind? What if—" "Stop." She pulled back, looked me in the eyes. "You are not losing your mind. You're standing up for yourself, and there are people in this world who will call that crazy because it's easier than admitting they're wrong." She guided me to the couch, opened the wine, poured 2 glasses. "I'm going to tell you something," she said. "Something I've never told anyone." I looked at her. "When my husband died, his family tried to take everything. Said I wasn't capable of managing his business. Said I was too emotional, too unstable, too stupid to handle it. They went to court, tried to get conservatorship. What happened? I fought. For 2 years I fought, and I won. Not because I was smarter or stronger than them, but because I refused to let them define me." She squeezed my hand. "You're going to do the same thing. You're going to take that evaluation. You're going to pass it with flying colors. And then you're going to take your house back. What if I can't? Then you fight anyway, because the alternative is giving up, and I don't think you're ready to do that yet." She was right. I wasn't ready to give up, but I was so tired of fighting, tired of proving myself, tired of being treated like I was the villain when all I'd done was stop being a victim. We drank the wine, ate the soup, talked about nothing important until I felt human again. When Mrs. Chen left, it was after 10. I locked the door behind her, checked all the windows, and stood in the middle of my small apartment, feeling like a stranger in my own life. How had it come to this? How had standing up for myself turned into a court battle over my mental competency? I looked at my phone. 3 missed calls from Ethan. Part of me wanted to call him back, wanted to scream at him, demand to know how he could do this to me, wanted to hear him apologize, take it back, admit he'd made a mistake. But the bigger part of me knew there was nothing left to say. He'd made his choice, and now I had to live with it. I fell asleep on the couch that night, still wearing my navy dress, and dreamed about Alexander. He was standing in the courtroom watching everything, not speaking, just watching. And when I woke up at 3 in the morning, I could still feel his presence, could almost hear his voice. "Don't you dare give up." So I didn't. The next morning I called Harold and scheduled the psychiatric evaluation. "They're going to ask you a lot of questions," he warned, "about your relationships, your decision-making, your emotional state. They're going to try to find anything they can use against you." So what do I say? The truth, but calmly, rationally. Don't let them see you angry or upset. Show them you're in control. I am in control. I know. Just make sure they know it too. Make sure The evaluation was scheduled for Friday, 3 days away. 3 days to prepare for strangers to decide if I was sane enough to manage my own life. I spent those days in a strange kind of limbo, not leaving my apartment unless I had to, not answering calls, just existing in this quiet, frozen space while I tried to figure out what version of myself I was supposed to present. The problem was I didn't know anymore. Was I the quiet, accommodating mother who'd spent years swallowing her pain? Or was I the angry woman who'd laid out documents on a dinner table and told her daughter-in-law to get out? Both felt true. Both felt like me. But only one of them would pass the evaluation. Thursday night, Ethan showed up at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there, hands in his pockets, looking nervous. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. "What do you want?" I asked through the door. "Just to talk. Please, Mom, 5 minutes. I unlocked the door but didn't invite him in. Stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry." "For which part? Trying to have me declared incompetent or just for getting caught?" He flinched. "I didn't want to do it. Amanda said it was the only way to stop the eviction. She said if we could prove you weren't thinking clearly, the judge would." "Would what? Give you the house? Let you keep living there while I got shipped off to some facility?" "No, I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. But I'm the one who needs a psychiatric evaluation." He looked down. I know how this sounds. I know I've been a coward, a terrible son. I know that, but I'm here now and I'm telling you I'm sorry. Why now? Why not 2 weeks ago? Why not when Cassandra called me a maid? Why not when someone threw a brick through my window? Because I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. I thought you'd back down. You thought I'd just take it, like I always do. Yeah, his voice was barely a whisper. I thought you'd just take it. I stared at my son, this man I'd raised, and realized I was looking at a stranger, someone who'd learned that the people who loved him would always forgive him, always back down, always put his comfort above their own dignity. And I taught him that through years of being accommodating, of making excuses, of accepting less than I deserved because I didn't want to rock the boat. I'm not taking it anymore, I said, and if you're here to ask me to drop the eviction, the answer is no. I'm not here to ask that. I'm here to tell you I'm leaving Cassandra. The words hit like a punch. What? I'm leaving her. I should have left her a long time ago, but I was scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of admitting I'd made a mistake. Scared of disappointing you. Disappointing me? You already did that when you let her treat me like garbage. I know, but Mom, I'm trying to fix it. You can't fix this by leaving her, Ethan. This isn't about her. This is about you. About the choices you made. About standing there silent while I got hurt over and over again. Tears were streaming down his face now. I know I can't fix it. I just need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see what I let happen, and I'm sorry. I'm glad you see it, but that doesn't change anything. You still testified that I was incompetent. You still tried to take away my rights. Amanda tricked me. She said it was just to delay the eviction, that they wouldn't actually take it all the way. Stop blaming Amanda. Stop blaming Cassandra. You made the choice, Ethan. You stood up in that courtroom and said your mother wasn't capable of managing her own life. That was you. He crumpled. Actually crumpled, leaning against the doorframe like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. How do I fix this? He asked. Tell me how to fix this and I'll do it. You can't. Some things can't be fixed. They can only be survived. So that's it? We're done? You're just cutting me out of your life? I don't know yet. I don't know what I'm doing, Ethan. I'm just trying to get through tomorrow and the day after that. And the evaluation on Friday where strangers get to decide if I'm sane enough to control my own money. I'll tell them I was wrong. I'll testify that you're completely competent. Too late. The damage is done. Now they have to investigate. Now they have to make sure, because you planted that seed of doubt. I'll fix it. You can't fix it. The words came out louder than I meant them. You can't fix what you broke, Ethan. You can't unsay what you said. You can't give me back the trust I had in you. It's gone. He stared at me with devastated eyes. I'm your mother, I said quietly, and I will always love you, but I don't know if I can forgive this. I don't know if we can come back from this. Please don't say that. I'm sorry, but it's true. I stepped back inside my apartment and slowly closed the door. He didn't try to stop me, just stood there as the door clicked shut between us. I leaned against it, listening to him cry on the other side. And I cried too, because I'd just lost my son. Maybe not forever, but for now. And that hurt worse than anything Cassandra had ever done to me. Friday morning came too fast. The evaluation was at 9. Harold drove me to the psychologist's office, a quiet building on the east side of town with beige walls and abstract art. Dr. Sarah Brennan was younger than I expected. Maybe 40, with kind eyes and a gentle voice. Mrs. Sterling, thank you for coming. I know this isn't easy. I don't have much choice. You always have a choice, but I understand it might not feel that way right now. She gestured to a chair. This is going to take a few hours. We'll talk about your history, your current situation, your decision-making process. I'll ask you some questions that might seem strange or personal, but it's all part of the evaluation, okay? Okay. We started. She asked about my childhood, my marriage, Alexander's death, how I'd managed the estate. She asked about my relationship with Ethan, with Cassandra, about the dinners and the confrontations, and I told her everything, calmly, rationally, without anger or tears. I told her about years of quiet humiliation, about being called a maid, about financing my son's life while being treated like a burden. I told her about finally standing up, about the eviction, about the threats and the vandalism and the brick through my window. And I told her about the choice I'd made, to choose my own dignity over my son's comfort. "Do you think that makes me crazy?" I asked. She looked at me thoughtfully. "No, I think it makes you human, and I think it makes you brave. Brave people don't cry in their apartments alone at 3 a.m. Yes, they do. Being brave doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you feel it and keep going anyway." By the time we finished, it was past noon. Dr. Brennan walked me to the waiting room where Harold was sitting. "When will you have the results?" he asked. "I'll have my report to the court by Monday, but Mrs. Sterling, I can tell you right now, you have nothing to worry about." Something in my chest loosened. "Thank you," I whispered. She smiled. "Thank you for trusting me with your story." Harold drove me home. I was exhausted, emotionally wrung out, but also relieved I'd passed, or at least I was going to pass. Dr. Brennan had said so, which meant the eviction would stand, the house would be mine, and Cassandra and Ethan would have to leave. I'd won. So why did it feel like I'd lost everything? The weekend passed in a fog. I didn't leave my apartment, didn't answer my phone, just sat by the window, watching the world move while I stayed frozen in place, waiting for Monday, waiting for the judge's decision, waiting to find out if I'd finally won or if this whole fight had been for nothing. Mrs. Chen brought food I barely touched. Harold called twice to check in. I told him I was fine, which was a lie, but it was easier than explaining that I felt hollow, that winning didn't feel like winning when the cost was losing my son. Sunday night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Ethan standing in my doorway crying, asking how to fix what he'd broken. Kept hearing my own voice telling him some things can't be fixed. Was that true, or was I just too hurt to try? I didn't have an answer. Monday morning came grey and cold. Harold picked me up at 8:30. We didn't talk much on the drive to the courthouse. What was there to say? Everything had already been said. Now we just had to wait for someone else to decide my fate. The courtroom was the same as before. Same wood paneling, same fluorescent lights. But this time there were more people in the gallery. I recognized a few faces from Cassandra's social circle. They'd come to watch the show, to see if the bitter old woman would finally get what she deserved. Cassandra sat at her table, looking confident. She wore a pale blue dress this time, her hair perfect, her makeup flawless. She looked like someone who'd already won. Ethan wasn't with her. That surprised me. I looked around the courtroom, expecting to see him somewhere, but he wasn't there. "Where's Ethan?" I whispered to Harold. "I don't know, but that might work in our favor. If he's not here to testify against you, all rise." The same judge entered, Judge Morrison. She sat down, adjusted her glasses, and looked at the papers in front of her for what felt like an eternity. "I've reviewed Dr. Brennan's psychiatric evaluation," she said finally, "and I've reviewed all the evidence presented by both parties. I'm ready to make my ruling." My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. First, regarding the conservatorship petition. Dr. Brennan's report is very clear. Mrs. Sterling shows no signs of diminished mental capacity. She is fully competent to manage her own affairs. The petition for conservatorship is denied. I felt Harold's hand squeeze my arm, a small victory. But there was still more. Second, regarding the eviction. The evidence shows that Mrs. Sterling is the sole legal owner of the property at 4782 Western Hills Drive. She provided financial assistance to the defendants, but that assistance does not constitute a transfer of ownership. The defendants have no legal claim to the property. Cassandra's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, we'd like to request an extension on the eviction timeline. My clients need more time to secure alternative housing. Your clients have had 5 weeks since the original notice was served. That's more than sufficient time. The eviction stands. The defendants have until this Friday at 5 p.m. to vacate the property. Any belongings remaining after that time will be considered abandoned. Your Honor, That's my ruling, Miss Voss. This case is closed. The gavel came down, and just like that, it was over. I'd won. The house was mine. Cassandra had to leave. Everything I'd fought for, everything I'd sacrificed, had led to this moment. So why did I feel like crying? People were standing up, filing out. Cassandra was arguing with her lawyer, her voice rising. Someone in the gallery was whispering. The whole room was buzzing with reaction. But I just sat there, numb. Vivian, Harold's voice was gentle. We should go. Yeah, okay. We stood up. I gathered my purse, my coat, moved toward the door like a robot, and then I heard her voice. This isn't over. I turned. Cassandra was standing 5 feet away, her face twisted with rage. You think you won? You didn't win anything. You're a miserable old woman who destroyed her own family because you couldn't handle not being in control. You're going to die alone in that house, and nobody's going to care. Harold stepped between us. Ms. Hale, I suggest you walk away. Why? What's she going to do? Sue me? She's already taken everything. Not everything, I heard myself say. You still have your freedom, your health, your life ahead of you. That's more than you deserve after what you did to me. Her eyes blazed. What I did to you. You're the one who lied for years. You're the one who manipulated. I helped you. I gave you a home, a life, everything you have, and you repaid me by treating me like garbage. So no, Cassandra, you don't get to play victim here. You lost because you earned it. She looked like she wanted to hit me, her hands clenched into fists, her whole body shaking, but she didn't. She just turned and stormed out, her heels clicking furiously against the floor. Amanda Voss followed her, shooting me a look that could have melted steel. And then they were gone. Harold exhaled. That went well. Did it? You stood your ground, didn't let her intimidate you. Yeah, I'd say it went well. But I didn't feel like I'd stood my ground. I felt like I'd just watched the last bridge between me and my old life burn to ash. We walked out of the courthouse into cold morning air. The sky was still grey, threatening rain. What happens now? I asked. Now you take possession of your property. They have until Friday to move out. If they're not gone by then, we can have the sheriff enforce the eviction. And after that, Harold looked at me. After that, you live your life, Vivian, however you want to live it. The words should have felt liberating, should have felt like freedom. Instead, they just felt heavy. I went home, sat in my apartment, stared at the walls, and tried to figure out what I was supposed to feel. Relief, triumph, victory. All I felt was tired. That afternoon my phone rang. Ethan. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom, where were you this morning? I couldn't come. I couldn't sit there and watch. His voice broke. I'm so sorry for everything, for testifying against you, for not standing up sooner, for being the worst son in the world. You're not the worst son. You're just... I stopped, tried to find the right words. You're just human. You made mistakes, bad ones, but you're human. Does that mean you forgive me? I don't know yet. I don't know if I can. He was quiet for a long time. I moved out yesterday, left Cassandra. I'm staying at a motel near the airport. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, I did. I can't be with someone who treats you like that, who made me treat you like that. I don't know why it took me so long to see it, but I see it now. Good, I'm glad you see it, but Ethan, leaving her doesn't fix what you did to me. I know. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just trying to be honest, to stop running from the truth. What truth? That I've been a coward my whole life, that I let Dad do all the hard work of being a parent while I just took, that I let Cassandra do all the hard work of being mean so I could pretend my hands were clean, that I let you pay for my life while I acted like I'd earned it. I closed my eyes. Hearing him say it out loud hurt more than I expected. So what are you going to do now? I asked. I don't know. Figure out who I am when I'm not hiding behind someone else. Start over. Actually work for something instead of letting you hand it to me. That's going to be hard. I know. But I need to do it, not for you, for me. We talked for a few more minutes, and when we hung up, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the beginning of understanding. Maybe that was enough for now. Tuesday and Wednesday passed slowly. I kept expecting something to happen, another threat, another confrontation, another bomb to drop, but nothing came, just silence. Harold called Wednesday afternoon with an update. They're moving out. I drove by the property this morning and saw a moving truck. Already? Seems like they don't want to drag this out any longer than necessary. Or they're planning something. Maybe, but Vivian, I think they're done. I think they know they lost. I wanted to believe him, but part of me couldn't shake the feeling that Cassandra would find one more way to hurt me. One more parting shot. Thursday morning I got a letter. No return address. Just my name on the envelope in handwriting I didn't recognize. I opened it carefully. Inside was a single piece of paper with 3 words. I'm sorry. Ethan. Underneath there was a check made out to me for $200,000. I stared at it, not understanding. Then my phone rang. Ethan, did you get it? What is this? It's everything I have in savings, everything Cassandra and I put away over the last 4 years. It's not enough to repay what you spent on us, not even close. But it's all I have. Ethan, I don't want your money. It's not about what you want, Mom. It's about what's right. You paid for our life. Now I'm paying you back. Even if it takes me the rest of my life, I'm paying you back. This is everything you have. You'll have nothing left. Good, maybe that's what I need. To start from zero. To know what it actually feels like to build something myself. I looked at the check through blurred vision. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Please, let me do this one thing right. I thought about it, about pride and symbolism and what it meant to accept money from someone who'd hurt you. Okay, I said finally. Okay. Thank you. We hung up and I sat there holding the check, feeling like maybe, just maybe, my son was finally becoming the man I'd always hoped he'd be. Friday came, 5 o'clock. Harold and I drove to the house together, the house that was now mine. Fully, legally, undeniably mine. The moving truck was gone. The driveway was empty. The windows were dark. We parked and walked to the front door. Harold had the keys. He unlocked it and we stepped inside. The house was empty. Not just empty of people, empty of everything. Furniture, pictures, dishes, everything. They'd taken it all. Our footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors as we walked through room after room. The living room where I'd been humiliated, the dining room where I'd laid out those documents, the kitchen where I'd eaten alone while they partied. All empty now, just walls and windows and space. They took everything, I said. Technically, most of it was theirs, the furniture, the decorations. They bought all that. I know, I looked around. I thought I'd feel different, standing here, knowing it's mine. How do you feel? Sad. We walked upstairs. The bedrooms were empty too. The master suite where Ethan had slept. The guest room I'd never been invited to use. All bare. In the master bedroom there was a single envelope on the floor. I picked it up. My name was written on the outside in Cassandra's handwriting. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity won. Inside was a note. You won. Congratulations. I hope it was worth destroying your family. I hope you enjoy living in this big empty house all by yourself, knowing your son will never forgive you. You may have the property, but I had his love, and that's something you can never buy back. See, I read it twice. Then I folded it up and put it in my pocket. What did it say? Harold asked. Nothing important. We finished walking through the house, every room empty, every closet bare. They'd even taken the light bulbs from some of the fixtures. It was petty and small and exactly what I expected from Cassandra. What are you going to do with the place? Harold asked as we stood in the foyer. I don't know yet. Maybe sell it, maybe rent it, maybe move in. You'd leave your apartment? Maybe, I don't know. I need time to think. We locked up and drove back to my apartment. Harold left me at my door with instructions to call if I needed anything. I went inside, back to my small one-bedroom with the mismatched furniture and the cardboard still taped over the broken window, and I realized something. This felt more like home than that mansion ever could, because this place was mine, really mine, earned through years of living modestly, of making careful choices, of not needing to impress anyone. That mansion was a symbol, a monument to wealth and success and all the things that were supposed to matter. But this apartment, this was real. I made tea and sat by the window watching the city lights come on as evening fell. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something like peace. Over the next few weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. I hired a property manager to handle the Western Hills house. We cleaned it, made some repairs, and put it on the market. It sold in 3 days for more than I expected. I paid off some debts, put money into savings, made a donation to a women's shelter in Alexander's name, and I kept the rest because I'd earned it, and I wasn't going to apologize for that anymore. Ethan called once a week. We didn't talk about the past, didn't rehash the hurt or the betrayal, just talked about normal things, his new apartment, his job, the therapy he'd started. Slowly, carefully, we were rebuilding. Not the relationship we'd had before, that was gone, but something new, something honest. It wasn't perfect. Some days I was still angry. Some days I couldn't look at his number without feeling that stab of betrayal. But other days I remembered he was my son, and that love doesn't disappear just because it's been hurt. One Saturday, about 2 months after the final court date, Ethan asked if he could take me to lunch. We met at a small diner near my apartment. Nothing fancy. Just coffee and sandwiches, and the kind of place where nobody cared who you were or what drama you'd been through. "How are you doing?" he asked. "I'm okay, really okay." "You look good, Mom, lighter somehow." "I feel lighter." Turns out not carrying around everyone else's expectations weighs less. He smiled, a sad smile but genuine. "I'm glad." We talked for an hour about his life, my life, the future, about the lessons we'd learned and the mistakes we'd made. And at the end, as we were leaving, he hugged me. "I love you, Mom. I know I screwed everything up, but I love you. I love you too, sweetheart, and maybe someday that'll be enough." "Is it enough now?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "Not yet," I said honestly, "but we're getting there." He nodded, accepted it, didn't push. And that, more than anything else, told me he was changing. I never saw Cassandra again. Heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to California, started over, married someone else within a year. I didn't care. She was part of a past I was done carrying. 6 months after everything ended, I stood in my apartment and realized something. I was happy. Not perfectly happy. Not without scars or regrets, but happy in a way I hadn't been in years. Happy because I'd chosen myself, because I'd drawn a line and defended it, because I'd learned that you can love someone and still set boundaries, that you can be kind without being weak, that standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish, it makes you whole. I thought about writing all this down, about sharing my story with other women who might be going through the same thing. Women who were being taken for granted, walked over, treated like they didn't matter. Maybe I would someday. Maybe that would be my next chapter. But for now, I was content to just live, to wake up every morning in my small apartment and know that everything I had, I'd earned, that nobody could take it from me unless I let them, that my worth wasn't determined by how much people needed me, but by how much I valued myself. Mrs. Chen invited me to her book club. I joined, made friends with 3 other women my age who had their own stories of standing up, speaking out, refusing to be diminished. We met every Tuesday, drank wine, talked about books and life and the ways we'd survived. And I realized I wasn't alone, had never been alone. There were so many of us, women who'd been told to be quiet, be accommodating, be grateful for scraps. Women who decided enough was enough. One evening, I was cleaning out old papers when I found a photo of Alexander, young, smiling, standing in front of our first apartment building, the one we'd bought together with our savings, back when we were still figuring out how to be adults. I looked at that photo for a long time. "I did it," I whispered. "I protected what you built. I stood up for myself. I think you'd be proud." And somehow I knew he would be. The navy dress went to the back of my closet. I didn't need it anymore, didn't need to prove anything to anyone. These days, I wore what I wanted, went where I wanted, said what I wanted, and if People didn't like it. That was their problem, not mine. I learned that love without respect is just control with better marketing. That family isn't defined by blood, but by how people treat you. That money can't buy loyalty, but it can buy freedom. And freedom, I discovered, was worth more than any mansion. Ethan and I had dinner once a month now, still awkward sometimes, still healing, but getting better. Last month he told me he was dating someone new, someone kind, he said, someone who didn't need him to be anything but himself. I think you'd like her, he said. I think I might, I replied, because I wanted him to be happy, even after everything, even with all the hurt. That's what love is, I think. Not the absence of pain, but the choice to keep caring despite it. I still think about that dinner sometimes. The one where Cassandra pointed to the kitchen and told me to eat with the help. The moment that changed everything, and I'm grateful for it. Because that moment woke me up, showed me I'd been sleepwalking through my own life, accepting less than I deserved, because I was afraid of what standing up would cost. It cost me plenty. My relationship with my son for a while, my peace, my reputation in certain circles, but it gave me something more valuable. It gave me myself. So here I am, 65 years old, living in a small apartment, driving an older car, wearing comfortable clothes, and I've never been happier. Because I know who I am now, know what I'm worth, know that I don't need anyone's permission to take up space in this world. The house on Western Hills Drive has new owners now, a young couple with 2 kids. They seem happy there. I hope they fill it with better memories than it had before. And me? I fill my days with things that matter. Books, friends, conversations that don't require me to shrink or apologize or pretend. Some people probably think I'm bitter, that I destroyed my family over pride. Let them think it. I know the truth. I didn't destroy my family. I saved myself. And sometimes that's the bravest thing you can do. So if you're reading this, if you're living in that kitchen while everyone else eats at the table, if you're swallowing your pain to keep the peace, if you're funding someone else's dream while yours gathers dust, let me tell you something. You deserve better. You deserve respect, dignity, to be seen and valued for who you are, not just what you provide. And if the people in your life can't give you that, then maybe it's time to take it for yourself. It won't be easy. It might cost you relationships. It might make you the villain in someone else's story. But here's what I learned. Being the villain in someone else's story is better than being invisible in your own. Stand up, speak out, draw your lines and defend them. You're worth it. I promise you're worth it. And years from now, when you're sitting in your own small apartment, drinking tea and watching the city lights, you'll know you made the right choice because you chose yourself. And that, more than any mansion or relationship or perfect family, is what freedom really looks like.